Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Cole Lauterbach. He's a reporter for the Illinois News Network.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Illinois Rising. Cole, great to have you. Interesting issue, criminal justice reform. It kind of brings together non-traditional coalitions. I know the Illinois Policy Institute has been trying to forge some of those non-traditional coalitions around these issues, of preventing recidivism and helping people who want to live productive lives after having made a mistake and paid for their mistake get on the path to those productive lives. Governor Rauner has also made this part of his policy agenda. And there's an interesting organization that was brought to this program's attention. It's called The Last Mile. It's a program, an organization that was started by an entrepreneur named Chris Redlitz and his wife, and perhaps it offers some promise for the goals that have been set forth by the Illinois Policy Institute and Governor Rauner and others in Illinois for criminal justice reform. And we're happy to have Chris Redlitz from The Last Mile join us now. Chris, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit, just because it's always an interesting story how someone starts in one walk of life, if you will, and transitions to another. What was your intersection with criminal justice reform as an issue you wanted to pursue, so much so that you and your wife started The Last Mile?
Well, I run a venture capital firm here in San Francisco, and I knew someone who was doing some tutoring and mentoring in San Quentin State Prison. San Quentin is fairly close to San Francisco, and I was asked to do a talk about entrepreneurship. I had never been in prison before, had really no interest or to be involved, but I went and did this talk, and I really didn't think that they would understand what I was talking about or have any interest. And what I found, it was completely the opposite. They were engaged, informed, prepared. Guys were handing business plans, and it immediately sort of changed my perception of what prison was all about before I walked in. And I left with this crazy idea of doing a tech incubator inside and leveraging a lot of the things that we do with our current portfolio, working with young companies, thinking we could teach technology to these guys and prepare them for a better life after they serve their time.
And so it sounds like your success model has been, you've seen a lot of success recently thus far then with these guys re-entering society and really contributing on a tech side as well.
That's right. Yeah, we've been at it about 6 years. We've got guys that are doing a variety of jobs in San Francisco in the tech community. About 2 years ago, we took our entrepreneurship program, which was the initial program, and rolled it into a technology training program that teaches the guys coding, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some Python, so they can walk out as junior software engineers to be a very, very employable job. That particular sector is a need. It's one of the few that is clamoring for more people. So the opportunity to be employed is significantly increased.
I just want to make sure we understand this, too. We're not talking about just white-collar criminals, people that are in prison that were educated and committed financial crimes, something like that. We're talking about your cross-section of people in prison, right?
Yeah, most of the guys in the program are in for violent crimes. Many of the guys had some sort of gang affiliation. Many came with no education. We've got one guy in our program who came to prison with a third-grade education, was able to educate himself, and entered the coding program with an AA degree that he had received, and he's excelling in computer programming. He never touched the keyboard before. So the profile of the guys in our program are limited education when they came to prison, a variety of ethnicities, but very, very little experience, if any, in anything related to computers or computer programming.
It's so fascinating, and it's fascinating that you chose the tech space because, of course, so many good jobs in that space if you have the skill sets you're describing. But normally we think, okay, you get out of prison, now you're going to have to be, to have a kind of a low-skill job and try and reacclimate and rework your way back into civil society. and you're kind of fast forwarding them because of the skills they're acquiring in prison. Why did you choose this sector? Is it just a sector you know?
Well, it's a sector we know, it's a sector we have a lot of connections to, but it's also one of those things where you don't necessarily have to have a higher education or you have a degree to be successful in programming. It's very much of a mindset and a skill set that can be learned, and creative people make great programmers. That doesn't mean that you have to graduate from a top university to be a great programmer. And to be honest, this whole thing was a bit of a social experiment to begin with, because when I started with my wife, Beverly, we had no idea whether anything would resonate, but we were going to try. And when we started, she and I did the first 40 weeks together, 2 nights a week in San Quentin, learning about what it would take to really create something and learning about prison dynamics of prison and so forth. And so we became totally immersed in the program ourselves and really didn't tell anybody else about it. But, I think that the perception that you can't teach people with little or no experience and people that are, a little bit older. The average age in our program is, probably 35 years old. So, I think those things were, I guess, a bit of an unknown, but we've certainly seen that it can be successful.
It's fascinating. Congratulations on your success. He is Chris Redlitz. He and his wife Beverly founded an organization called The Last Mile, essentially rehabilitating and facilitating the reentry into society at a high functioning level of ex-cons. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.